Hey, happy Friday. John from North Jersey Health and Muscle. Tonight, wanted to talk about Ensure. I'm just looking at my phone because yesterday I read or came across something on my Instagram feed ripping on Ensure and hospitals and dietitians and doctors for recommending it and saying there's kickbacks and yada, yada, yada. And, I made some comments back, and this is usually pretty common that people, have something against Ensure products like it because of the ingredients and corn syrup and things like that. But you have to remember, what are you going to put into a can that's going to stay good? And also you have to think about who's it for. It's for the typical elderly person or maybe young person, but not an active person, not someone who works out. It's based on the typical American diet. And it's probably like 15% or less fat. 15% or less protein. Probably more than 30, probably like 40-something percent fat, which is not optimal, and the rest carbohydrates. And then you can have different brands or different variations for people who are diabetic, or people who need more protein, or people who need more fat because of breathing problems, or people who are on fluid restrictions and need to get their calories in a smaller quantity of fluid. That's just the way it goes. Why do we have them? Because it's harder for people to eat. It's easier for them to drink. How is it prescribed? It's prescribed by a doctor, recommended by a dietitian, typically up to 3 times a day, either between meals or at the end of a meal when the patient loses interest in eating or ability to eat or energy to eat, and what have you. So the other thing you also have to bear in mind is, what are you trying to do? You're trying to keep the patient healthy and keep them from breaking down, getting skin tears and bed sores, losing weight in the hospital, just declining, and then having to be in the hospital longer. So you do want to get them out, and there is education given based on the patient's needs. And somebody else recommended we should be changing their eating habits completely. Well, for someone who's like I would say 75 or more and doesn't have a ton of time left on this earth, to take away the pleasurable food they have been eating, even if it did kind of get them to where they are, maybe with heart disease or whatever. I mean, you can tweak it a little bit, but there's also medications for that, and it's about what's ethical and appropriate, and what the patients are willing to do. So, but of course, it's always available. That's what dietitians do. They educate patients in the hospital and families. If obviously most of the people that were commenting on this post that there's brainwashing going on, the employees are brainwashed, and it would be free. All you would have to do is you can do better themselves. It's free. It costs nothing. Taking a further step to tell patients the things they can do to help themselves. It's not their fault. Hospitals brainwash their employees. Helpful advice and healthier ways to get vitamin and minerals after hospital treatment should be implemented into their training. Well, it is. I mean, this woman obviously has never been in a hospital and seen by a dietitian because maybe she's healthy and they just didn't get to her. They were dealing with more at-risk people. But, of course, education happens in the hospital. But let's think about what you're a certain way and a certain weight and a certain nutritional status, and then you develop the problem that puts you in the hospital. How is nourishing you supposed to reverse those conditions? It's not going to reverse the condition. Maybe from eating high fat and junk food you got clogged arteries or gained weight and got diabetes. Feeding you is not going to, maybe eating less is going to get your weight down and control the diabetes a little bit. along with medication and whatnot. But maybe you got cancer. I've worked cancer floors, and I've seen a lot of people put a lot of hope into this, so I get it. Looking for ways. There's not always ways that can, in any reasonable amount of time, improve your condition. And I feel bad when I read comments of people that, their family member at end of life and they were put on Ensure and that was their main source of nutrition and then they died. And, it's sad, but that's not why they died. That might have been keeping them around. It might not have been. And let's not even say for sure if that's even a good thing, to just feed somebody to keep them alive if they're in a very terrible state of health. But again, it is a good thing to keep somebody nourished so they don't turn to skin and bones. They don't get bed sores. They don't get weak. They have no energy and that type of stuff. And that's what the Ensure is for. It's a supplement. It's not a protein shake. It's a supplement. It's too expensive to make it out of food, and it goes bad, and it can get contaminated, and it can get people sicker. That's why it's in cans. So the ingredients might not be what some of us feel are the best ingredients, but they're pretty good. And it's balanced with vitamin and minerals. Like I said, it's basically to replace the typical American diet. So not lacking in anything according to the RDA, which isn't a great guide, but it's what we have to prevent disease. So it's enough of everything to prevent disease, and if you consume enough of it, it is a full day's worth of calories and vitamins and minerals, and that's the end of the story. It's not anything magic or anything like that, and I don't think anything that you eat is going to be doing too much crazy stuff for you health-wise. I will say that when I worked cancer floor, I did go down to the kitchen myself and make milkshakes for people on occasion. There was times in a nursing home setting where I did go down to the kitchen and ask them to make special food for certain patients that weren't eating. And surprisingly enough, it was healthy food for a woman who was in the hospital who lost her son in his 30s, and she was in her 70s, or maybe he was in the 40s and she was in her 80s. And she actually didn't really like the typical diet for people her age that was in the nursing home, like meatloaf and mashed potatoes. So I said, what do you like to eat? Well, I like to eat what my younger son that I lost used to make me. What was that? Well, simple, baked chicken, grilled chicken, rice with no butter type things, and steamed vegetables. So I asked the kitchen to make that for her, and she ate great for a couple of days that they did that for her. I don't remember what happened after that, but same thing with someone in the hospital with cancer. We had Ensure shakes, and then we had milk-based shakes that came from an ice cream place nearby. And this person wanted a real milkshake, right out of the blender. So I went and made him one. Labor is expensive. That wasn't my job. And even the kitchen people who made less than me, that wasn't their job either. Their job was to make the food for the rest of the hospital. So that's why you have these products. So I just think I throw it out there. Ensure gets a bad rap. But think about it. Use common sense. Common sense can go either way. It can help you understand that it's not Ensure is not an offensive thing, and it can also, in my case, it can also lead you to let's come up with a simple solution. Sometimes there's a really simple solution to a problem. This elderly woman. There's a bunch of stuff on the menu at this nursing home or assisted living. She didn't like any of it. She liked something simple. Sometimes just ask. So that's it. North Jersey Health and Muscle. I'm out. Health comes first.